Hi, this is Bonnie, and we're back this month with Block 6 of our Block of the Month Club. Today will be the last day that I will be doing an online video. From now on, we can come back into the library. We can meet in the meeting room. We have to wear our mask, no food or drink, because we need to leave our mask on, and we need to stay socially distanced when we're in there. But that will all come together when you come and join with me in the meeting room. We will meet again the second Tuesday of the month, 6 o'clock. Bring your supplies, bring your questions, and we will just continue on in the meeting room. If by chance the situation changes and we will have to go back to the online videos, that's what we'll do. But I'm hoping that by October, you will have all 12 blocks completed, and then you'll have time before Christmas to finish completing the quilt, putting the quilt together, and having it all finished for a Christmas gift, if that's what you would like to do. Today, our block is going to be Sister's Choice. And this is a very simple block to do, but I did find it challenging in the fact that I had to really watch the pattern to make sure that I was going to get these little half square triangles lined up in the direction they were supposed to be lined up in. When this is finished, it's only a 10.5-inch block. And as we've talked before, we want all of our blocks to be 12.5 inches square, so that when it's completed, it's a 12-inch block. Remember, we're taking off 1/4 inch all the way around for our seam allowance, which would bring it down to 12 inches. Now, as I have mentioned before, I am actually doing a king size quilt. So instead of 12 blocks, I'm doing 36. So you're able to see the block as it progresses into this finished block. I have used the same color family and the same fabrics. It's just that I have chosen different combinations for each block. Now, on the website and on the YouTube video, you will see that there's the pattern for you to download. As I've mentioned before, this is an excellent pattern selection, is that it tells you exactly what you need to cut. Here will be your piles of blocks ready to assemble. And then you just start following the instructions, and you complete your sections as needed. Now, this time, you're only going to have to assemble 8 half square triangles, which means that you'll use the 4 and then cut them in 2, and then we'll end up with 8. And then you're going to lay your block out. This block had light points, and I actually, in the end, did all different combinations and had just a lot of fun with it. I was trying to think, well, I don't know this block well enough to know if this is the traditional setup, but then I thought, it's my quilt. I can assemble them any way that I want to. When you download the directions, you will see that there's a highlighted area, and this is a link you can go to, and it will remind you how to do the half square triangles that I'll be talking about in just a second. So then as we continue, we just start to assemble the quilt, and first we'll assemble it in rows, and then after we have it sewn together, remember how I said pressing is so important? Before this, you will just need to press your half square triangles. And then this is when you've used your half square triangles and your plain squares. Those are the only 2 techniques that we're using today. And so you're going to want to make sure to do that pressing. If you don't do the pressing, things are just not going to fit together. Once you've pressed those seams, the seams butt up against each other and you have a nice true connection point that just fits nicely together and you don't have any gaps in it. So let's get started. So I'm going to put my pattern aside, and this is, like I said, I had some issues with keeping my little points of my triangles going in this right direction. One of my little triangles fell off. Don't know where it is. Well, one of my triangles fell off, but I'll show you in a second. I used Scotch tape on this ruler and it didn't want to stay. So let me tip the camera down so that you can see what we're up to. So here we go. We have our camera down so you can get a better idea of the block. Remember that I am using a very neutral color thread. I've spoken this before. That way your thread, it's going to blend in with your light colors. It won't be too bad with your colored flower, your darker blocks or your medium blocks. So neutral thread, this is like a light taupe color, not beige. I'm not crazy about beige, so I go more the taupe end of it that has the little blue in it, so it's kind of a grade tan. And this is my favorite neutral color to assemble. So the first thing you're going to do is take your 3-inch triangles, and you're going to take, or your 3-inch squares, I'm sorry. You take your 3-inch squares, you're going to have a light, and this time, because I did my points in a dark, I have a light and a dark that I put together. On the light, I have drawn a cutting line diagonally across the block. And then then I use that cutting line to act as a guideline for my stitching. So I'll line my foot up along the guideline and also 1/4 of an inch on this side. And I'll flip it over and I'll do 1/4 of an inch on this side. So now I do not stitch along the cutting line because in a second, that's where I am going to cut. Now let me grab my scissors. And these are just a set of very sharp, small scissors. They're made by Ginger, which is a German company. And to me, these are like the best scissors going. They keep a sharp edge for a long time, and you can easily get them sharpened. So that makes it very nice. Get a good pair of scissors and they can last you your entire lifetime. So now I cut my triangle in two. And now I'm going to open it up. I'll press that seam and I press it toward the dark fabric. And now I have a nice flat half square triangle. This, and like I said, I'm sorry, this one must have fallen off on my travels out to the kitchen. So let me see now. I need to go back to my original. And I'm going to look here, and this would go here. Let me take a piece of my Scotch tape off here. All right, this is going to go here. I see a piece of Scotch tape here. So now I'm going to again look at my pattern, and I'm going to see that this half square triangle goes like this. So the last quilt we did an hour shaped block. Well, this way of doing it, it gives you that same look of that hourglass, except it's not as complicated to sew and cut. So there we have that one. And again, I'm looking at my pattern and I know this one goes like this. I love stars in a quilt. That's one of my very favorite things to do. And I tend to do a lot of stars. So let me grab my tape there. I was trying to figure out a way that I could tape these down because you do have to follow that pattern in order to get those little half square triangles lined up correctly. Because when you get this put together, again, when you finish, you are going to have a star design. Now you're going to notice I do have a 12.5-inch template, and I have scotch taped the pieces to this. But now remember that around every one of these blocks, there's going to be a 1/4 inch that comes off. So even though this fills up and overlaps the 12.5-inch template that I have, by the time you're done and you have all those little 1/4 inches taken away, then you're going to end up with a 10.5-inch block. So here I have this laid out, and as you can see, here is our, tip it up a little, here's our star design that I like so much. So it's like squares within a star, but I still have my star in there. But I had to be very, very careful when I laid it out that I would have these half square triangles with the colored half in the correct place. So you do end up with the star. After I have these all sewn together and I have my 10.5-inch block, then I'm going to take an inch or a 2-inch strip, border strip, to go around the quilt. And by the time I take a 1/4 inch off both sides, I'm going to end up with an 1.5 inches, and then an 1.5 inches on both sides, because when I take the 1/4 inch in here on this side and a 1/4 inch here, it's going to give me just 1 inch all the way around, and that's going to give me my 12.5 inches finished block. So I just cut mini strips because I'm going to be using these a lot. And so now I can just take and use what I need and then cut it off. And then I'll have the rest of this stripping left over for more 10.5-inch blocks. So now I had cut, and you'll need to have and follow the pattern closely. You'll cut your pieces according to the directions. You'll have 3-inch squares to make your half square triangles. And then the rest of the squares, just the solid squares, those are 2.5 inches. So it's just a very, very simple pattern to do. And you can have so much fun assembling it in whichever direction you would like. Now you notice that in the center of this one, I had more darks, and this whole inside block is dark with the lighter points going out from it. This one has just a mixture of lights and darks, but this time my points going out are dark. Completely changes the look of the block. So no one's going to know if you have used that same block over and over again. Once you have cut your pieces and you've done your half square triangles and your 2.5-inch solid squares, then you're going to assemble your quilt into strips, or you're going to put your little pieces together in strips. This quilt actually has 4 strips, where we have been used to in the past only having 3 rows. This one we have 4 rows. So here is my base row, and here is my second row. Let me tip this down. Here is my third row that has the center. I tend to like lighter colors in the center just because for me, that almost seems like it makes a happy center. I don't know why I say that, but I do like a light little bit in the center. I think it draws your eye into the center of your quilt block. Every quilt block that you do, or what I do, I try and frame that block to keep the block within the square, not just letting it trail off to the side. So here we have our 4 rows laid out. And now I would simply start, I would start to assemble them. And you see when I press this, I pressed it so the seams on one block went to the left and the seams on the other row went to the right. And now I can butt these 2 seams up against each other, and it's going to make a true connection so that when you open it, those are going to be lined up exactly perfect. And your 2 seams are going to just be perfect. Again, I can't emphasize how important it is to press as you go. I actually just put my rows out on the ironing board, and I looked at how I had pressed the seam before, and I made sure that my new seam went in the opposite direction. So I'm going to do this backwards to me, but correct to you. I went to the left on this one. I went to the right on this one, to the left, to the right, to the left. And that way they're going to butt up against each other when I go to assemble them and put them together. So this is a very easy quilt block to do. The half square triangles would be the more intricate of the design, but basically because we've already done so many half square triangles, it should be a piece of cake. The only thing you have to watch out for in this one are these points, because you want them to come out as a star. For example, if I were to take, say, this row, and I was to swap it out, that one isn't showing up. Let me do it down here. If I was to take this row and spin it and put it, see, now I don't have that nice star design. It looks flat. And so if you make sure that you have them spinning in the right direction, you see you have beautiful points coming out and you don't have that flat look. So this is an easy block to assemble. Like I said, the thing you have to be most careful of is getting these points pointed in the right direction. And other than that, it's just half square triangles and your squares to assemble. Here again is my finished block. And here is the block pieces that I have laid out. And as you see, they're all the same pattern, but by the choice of the color combinations and how I put them together, they look totally different. And that's what makes it so much fun, and it will make it your own personal quilt. Now, if you have any questions at all about that you would like to ask me, you can go to our website, or you can type in quilting@clinton.lib.mi.us, and that will give you the email address that you can send me any quilting questions. And I will be happy. I check it every day, so I'll be happy to get back to you with a question. Again, I'll do a reminder about the switch back to in-person classes. I like doing classes in person. I like the one-on-one. I like being able to discuss things with each other and compare ideas. So I'm looking forward to meeting with you in person. If that by chance doesn't work out, we'll go back to the online class, and then we will just continue on until we finish all the blocks in October. So again, when you go to look in the downloads for this pattern. It's going to be the Sister's Choice, and I'll have the web address posted both on the YouTube and on the calendar, our Google Calendar for the library, and you can go in and you can download the pattern. I also highly recommend, excuse me, spring allergies. I also highly recommend that you print it in color. The color makes such a difference in understanding how the blocks need to go together. If you're working with all grays, sometimes it gets very difficult to see the chain of how things are supposed to go. So I do recommend that you post it in color. So I'm going to sign off for today. If you have any questions, please email me at quilting.clinton.live.mi.us, and I will answer your questions as quickly as I can. And just thank you for joining me today, and I really look forward to seeing you next month in person in the meeting room. Like I said, if it doesn't work out, let me know. We'll continue with virtual. I'll just do whatever people would like me to do so that we can finish our quilt together. So have a great day, and I'll see you next time.